She's a funny old broad. She keeps you guessing.
Oh, hey everybody. Today I want to talk about Hillsdale College and Imprimus. Imprimus is a series of these pamphlets right here that they send to you. You can, they've got 6,800,000 people that receive these. The one I want to talk about today is from May 2025, volume 54, number 5. So this is 54 years they've been doing this, and this is the fifth one of this year. This one was a huge, huge thing about tariffs in American history. They also put together a 50th anniversary collection. It was edited by Douglas A. Jeffrey. I think you can see that. A 50th anniversary collection. It's got sections of politics, economics, culture, national defense, the Constitution, and there's a foreword written by Douglas A. Jeffrey, Vice President for External Affairs and editor of Imprimus, Hillsdale College, where they take these essays that have been done and they put them together for a 50-year compendium that they have here, or an anniversary collection. I really like it. I got it when I went to a Hillsdale event here in Atlanta as someone's guest, and it was really nice being around people who had similar, in other words, I didn't have to explain to them when I said something because they understood where all it was coming from. So it was nice just to have a full conversation. Now, I'm not in any way, shape, or form going to explain anything about anything. Instead, as I read through this tariffs, you see that? Tariffs in American history, I found, let's see, I marked 1, 2, 13, 16 points that I'm just going to bump through real quick and read to you verbatim as just bits and pieces of the thoroughness of this particular piece. You can go to hillsdale.edu, Hillsdale, HILLSDALE.edu, and from there, you might could get on their mailing list or ask to get this particular pamphlet that they put. John Steele Gordon is author of An Empire of Wealth, The Epic History of American Economic Power. And he is the one that wrote this. It was a lecture that he delivered. Tariffs are the earliest form, brought about the earliest form of tax evasion, which was smuggling. Now, this I did not know. I often wondered why there was smuggling. Now I know. People didn't want to pay their taxes. Now, in America's colonial period, the east coast of the United States was wonderful for smugglers. There were so many ways to get up into the country through little inlets and little rivers and this sort of thing where you could just be real sneaky, and they managed to do that. And the American colonists evaded British tariffs on a grand scale. Now, that's one of the things that had to be handled. The tariffs that Britain was putting on the colonists were egregious, and there was no benefit coming back to the colonists for those tariffs that they were paying. So thus we have formed a new nation. Rhode Island was the epicenter of colonial smuggling. It was said its coastline relative to the area and its many small harbors was huge. fearing that a stronger federal government empowered to tax would suppress smuggling, became a big deal with people who were making, making a good profit with smuggling, and they didn't want their ability to bring product in and sell it to be stopped. So let's see, having its, they said they did not want to have their exports taxed as if they were a foreign nation. So when the Constitution took effect in 1789, the first order of business was to straighten out the nation's disastrous financial situation. Alexander Hamilton became the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury and immediately began to prepare a schedule of tariffs along with excise taxes on such commodities as alcohol and tobacco. Point 8, Hamilton's tariffs, along with the refunding of the national debt and the establishment of a central bank, transformed the American financial institution. By the 1790s, the U.S. had the best credit rating in Europe, its bonds selling over par. By 1792, it had nearly tripled federal revenues, and 90% of that revenue came from tariffs. It was a ratio that wouldn't change much except during the Civil War. The tariffs were solely for the purpose of raising revenue, but of course there's another use to which tariffs can be put: the protection of domestic industries from foreign competition. And we've been seeing a lot of that in this century and last century. At his first inauguration, George Washington had been symbolically careful, now this is interesting, to wear a suit made of cloth woven in the U.S. rather than cloth imported from Britain. Because at the time, all high-quality cloth was from Britain. So somebody said, no. And George Washington wore domestic cloth. Let's see here now. I'm going to pause for just a second. You won't know, but just 1 second. Whereas the weaving of cloth was still initially done at home. Now, isn't that interesting? So the spinning industry started up first here, but then that product was sent to Britain, where they then wove it on their looms. Or people would buy that product and take it to their loom at the house, which they had, and they would weave it themselves. How about that? And then in 1814, Francis Cabot Lowell built a factory that would merge spinning and weaving into the first fully integrated cloth mill in the world. You know, my first official job was working at Tasty Freeze in the summer of my 15th year. But when I was 16, I went to work full time, 6 days a week, midnight to 8 in the morning, at a Regal Textile in Alto, Georgia. I was a spinner. So the cotton came in at one end, went through carding and went through other refinements until it got into a thick rope and was put on a large spindle. I hung the spindle up here, fed the rope through these rollers, one rolling slow, one rolling really fast, and it spun it and put it on these smaller spindles and wound it up into threads, and then those went to another department who put it on a different kind of thing, stretched it out, did what they needed to do, and then it was moved over to the looms where people were stringing up the looms so that the weaving could take place. Now, underneath that is a department that I got sent to later, was the cloth room, what's called the cloth room, and up above in the floor was big, were all the looms up ahead, and it was like bam, bam, bam. You had to wear these things in your ears to keep the noise down, and the cloth would come down, and I was an inspector, and it would come down, and I would wrap it around there was a large metal bar that you had to put through a long toilet tube roll. Basically, that's what it was. Nice, heavy cardboard roll that when they took the metal bar out, it would maintain its shape, and it would roll. They roll on this platform. I'm going to say the rolls would be about this big around. Now, as an inspector, my job was to stand behind it, and light would be coming this way, and I had to identify all defects in the cloth, and there was a pad that I would have to fill out. At this point, from left to right or from right to left, I would have to measure it and tell where that defect was, if it was a running defect, if it was a defect that just happened every now and then, boom, like what was a loom slam or something like that, that would put a heavy concentration of a material in one place, and then it would be very thin up here. Double picks, missed picks, all sorts of things. And then put that little piece of paper, attach it to something, and it would go up through the floor to the loom operator up there, and they would fix that problem. And then that cloth would, after the roll was finished, cut it off, start another one, and they would have a fella come with a one of those things that could pick up heavy loads, hand done, and he would roll it over and put it on a long bench that rolled forward on people who were cloth graders, and then they would grade the cloth. I ended up grading cloth also, and that was a whole different process. And but we made all kinds of different cloth: corduroy, jeans, dress cloth, cloth that had a light hand when it was finished. So it was very interesting. But so that's where it started in 1814. Well, how about that? And then in 1824, by 1824, which is 10 years later, there were 2 million people employed in manufacturing, and 10 times the number of only 5 years earlier. Wow. American manufacturing. Wow. You just, when you're born into it, you just assume it's always been there, but it didn't. Somebody had to identify a problem, take up the challenge of addressing it, and in that they found opportunity. Let's see. In 1828 through 1832, South Carolina legislature passed an ordinance of nullification declaring the tariffs to be null and void within the borders of the state. President Jackson said, yeah, no, we're not having none of that. And he put the kibosh on that thought. But it says, with American industry becoming ever more efficient, because of Yankee ingenuity, tariff protection became less necessary, and tariffs generally tended downwards until the coming of the Civil War. And of course, wartime brings its own war demand, and high tariffs produced an enormous boom in American industry. Now, that's where I'm going to stop, because there is so much more information. You really need to get a hold of Hillsdale and see if you can't get this. I wonder if they have a digital copy of it on their website. I don't know. But if you want to understand what's going on with the tariff situation, why tariffs are important for a balance of trade for everybody in the world, for everybody. And it makes it fair for everybody. And it's harder. Let me tell you something. When you have a good tariff situation, I bet it's very hard for tyrants and dictators to abuse their populations. Maybe that's why there's such a pushback on the tariffs. I don't know. It's very interesting. Well, listen, that's the short for today, 15 minutes, and I'm going to say goodbye. And, remember, life is a funny old broad.
She treats you right.